Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of The X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro, and with me is the man trapped in the middle of Mardi Gras.
Paul.
How you doing, Paul?
Greetings from New Orleans, everybody. Good Lord, it is the Wild West out here.
Yes.
Bye, Felix. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, lots of shootings, lots of clowns dropping into the town, right?
a few shootings in the literal sense. There's been a couple, just like a handful, and as far as the clowns, those are metaphorical. Just all the ones in the government running our city right now.
Yes, but also figuratively, I've seen some of the people dressed in the French Quarter, the ones you showed me.
Some of them are really cool looking, and some of them look so ridiculous. But honestly, I realized that how blind I have become to all of the weird stuff that I see in my own city, because I was driving behind a guy riding a bike with a giant basket welded to the front of his bike, and he had a tuba in it, and he was in a full suit just driving through the French Quarter. And I was at first like, oh, okay, cool, he's just getting to his gig. And then I was like, man, if anybody else saw this stuff, they would be going nuts. They'd be taking pictures. And I'm like, oh, yep, this is another dude trying to get to his jazz club before the evening time. And it's wonderful. I love the city. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like it's the real life Toontown, it seems like. And I can respect that. And
yes.
But yeah, now you get to escape a little bit before you have to go back into that nonsense.
My gosh.
Yeah, it's been quite a day, but also happy Tuesday, because today, even though this is posting the next day, we're recording on Tuesday, which is February 22, 2022. So it's weird. It would have been funny to have been recording at 2:00, but obviously that would have been a little too much. We're recording 2 hours later for that. But yeah, this is going to be one of those final weird time periods for us of like things just aligning like that. I remember 12. Also, I remember 12, 13, 14. So
well, I don't know about your computer, but mine is reading 4:22 p.m.
Yeah.
Just changed.
And it just changed to 4:23 p.m. So.
Dang it. Well, I caught it right before it changed. So it's divisible by 2 and then 2. There we go. It
makes sense. But yeah, this is the X Button podcast. We post every Wednesdays at 10 a.m. God willing, and it's always available here through YouTube and any of our podcast audio services that are available that you can find at anchor.fm/escape-media. So Paul, it's been a fun time this past week for some couple releases. So what have you been playing?
Almost entirely a little game that I hated the prequel to.
Until its very end.
Horizon Forbidden West.
Yes.
And my goodness, what a game.
Yeah. So is that all you played? Like, has that been the only thing you've been playing?
Leading up to it, like since last Tuesday, I tried playing like Destiny. I played like a couple of indie games here and there. Anything to try to keep me
entertained
over, if that's the best way to explain that. Nothing really of note, just all stuff that I already own, trying to get further in something, trying to play some mindless hours of Rocket League.
Getting to witness a beheading on The Wolf Among Us also.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I played a lot more Wolf Among Us. And I say a lot. I just finished the first episode of it, which still was like a good 2 or 3 hours or something. I don't know. Maybe it's
it's always 2, 3. Yeah, 2 and 3 is always like the debut episodes or a Telltale. Then the second episode is shorter. Then the middle one gets a little longer again. Then the fourth one is similar, and then the fifth one's a meaty one. So,
got it.
Also,
well, yeah.
You mentioned it as like happy Witch Queen release date today.
Yes.
A game we haven't played yet because time and life.
Been able to play. We'll just blame the queue, like nobody can get in and all that stuff.
I couldn't. And this morning I tried. It's like the queue is too long. Yeah, going to work. I'll do it. I'll probably do it because I was going to come back from work earlier, and then life happened, and then I actually came back. But then other stuff I needed to attend to before recording. So I was like, I wanted to sneak in.
Answer me this: how long does it usually take for the queue to like chill out?
It's working now. It's already working. Yeah.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if it's like, is it just because there's so many people trying to log in, and then they just
apparently they prepared better this time because they knew they had like 1 million pre-orders. So
that's right. I remember we talked about that actually on here.
So at the very least, they knew how much server space they needed to kind of prepare for. And from what I was reading, following Paul Tassi on Twitter, it only took like an hour for the queue to really work. Other times it's been worse.
Wow.
So it could have been. Yep. Yeah, I've been through every Destiny launch like all the time, and I can count in less than one hand the ones that worked immediately. So that game, that's a good thing to have, because that means that game is still remarkably popular. So happy Witch Queen release date for anyone that loves Destiny like us. We'll definitely be jumping in later after we record this. Yes. And also, before you move on, happy 10th birthday, PlayStation Vita.
Oh.
Yeah, the Vita.
Pour one out for a real one.
Yeah, pour one out for the handheld that never could. The handheld that had every potential. All the potential in the world.
But I respected it so much. And like a lot of people, that was when I was working at GameStop, and there were so many people that were like from other countries that loved playing, buying it, using it. A lot of like our Hispanic brothers and sisters would just love the Vita, and I was like, obviously it's got something going on. Every time I would hold it in my hands, it felt great with the thumbsticks, the trackpad on the back of it. It's just, I played Gravity Rush on that originally, and that was so fun. Which, if you've never played Gravity Rush or the sequel, absolutely get those on sale. They're amazing.
Yes, and they're on PS4 now, so
I know, even better. But still, rest in peace, Vita.
Yeah, the PS Vita will always stand as Sony's most humbling moment in a way, because they had huge success in the PSP, but they never really understood why the PSP was so successful, and it was because it was a homebrew machine, an easily homebrewed machine. And then they decided to overly correct themselves with trying to protect the Vita hardware, and that backfired because they made everything proprietary. The memory cards were hella expensive.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, like
it didn't even 30 come with memory cards.
No,
it's like you had to pay extra.
Yeah, and a 4GB one was like $20 or $30, but I remember it was $100 to pay for a 32GB one, and that is so funny to really think about that 32 gigabytes was $100 in 2012 money, and now we're dealing with terabytes. So, which, by the way, if you're looking to expand your PS5 storage, there's a Samsung compatible hard drive right now for $169 for 1 terabyte over at Amazon. So just throwing it out there. But yeah, like Sony immediately abandoned the Vita, like after the first, because ironically, Nintendo chose violence the month that the Vita was coming out in December 2011 by releasing a Monster Hunter, Mario Kart 7, and Super Mario 3D Land right on top of the Vita. And then that immediately cannibalized the Vita, and then they got terrified about the numbers. They were like, yeah, this is not going to be worth it. After a full year, they stopped supporting it with their games. The Vita survived because of the indie scene that then eventually moved to PS4. So yeah, it's like, I can imagine, it's so funny because the Switch is so successful, and it's like the Vita now just seems like it was too ahead of its time in a way. Like it should have waited, or at least better developed the idea of a console gaming on the go. So
well, now we get something like the Steam Deck, which is coming out in a few months, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's this month. The Steam Deck releases this month. I think it's actually out.
I knew it all along.
Yeah. So,
gosh.
So pour one out for that one, because how it just came and went, I guess it's not going to be doing well. So
I really want it to do well, but
same, because I want Nintendo to feel like they have actual competition in their field.
I agree.
So before we talk about the main game, we have to talk about that I've been waiting for. I did play a few things. Yeah, but just briefly, like in a twist of fate, because the conversation around Cyberpunk, which we talked about last week, that Cyberpunk 2077 next gen finally like surprise dropped when we were recording. I tried that version a little bit as someone that played the PS4 base version in December 2020. It couldn't have been more night and day. The difference in how well it ran, how sharp that looked, how pleasing the world was, that I was like, this seems like a game that I would totally play now. Unfortunately, Cyberpunk came out at the absolute worst time, so this is an April game for me, but at least I tried it. In the conversation about Cyberpunk, everyone was talking about the some of the best things CDPR has done, and someone mentioned the Bloody Baron Family Matters quest. And I remember reading a tweet thread about it. I was like, wait, what? What? And then I remember, I think I buy the Bloody Baron. That's the last thing I remember playing from The Witcher 3. I put the PS4 version, I played through the Bloody Baron quest, and I was like, yay, 2022 is the year where I have to deal with monstrous fetuses. First with Resident Evil Village, and now this. So
I am so glad you got to experience that, because my goodness, sitting on that bombshell where like you cannot explain it to somebody without spoiling it, and spoiling it ruins the impact. And you have to get somebody to say, all right, fine, I will play through at least this part of it.
And it's so early in the game. It's so funny that happens so early.
But I'd still say, like, there's a good enough meaty amount of the game that if you don't really get through to that point, you won't understand why the game is so beloved by people, because so many people, I would say up until this point, obviously there's outliers everywhere, but Witcher 3 for me was one of the first points where I was playing through a side quest and went, this is more interesting than the main quest to me. Like, oh, this is juicy. I want to sit here, drink some tea, and watch this unfold.
So well written, so
fantastic.
And so subdued in how it handles something. Like it touches on like marital problems, like abuse and things like that, like in such a mature way that I was like, now I get why everyone championed CDPR and the way to Cyberpunk. And from what I understand, Cyberpunk never got even remotely close to delivering.
There was maybe one quest that I considered almost at that level. And you never finished it, did you?
No, neither of these two games. Yeah.
There's just one involving like a prisoner who is set to be executed, and it's you following this group around with the prisoner and getting to know him and figuring out what you want to do about this situation. And that was a very deep moment that had me kind of existentially considering things in my life. But then that was the only one. I was like, oh, that was great. Let's see what other quests Cyberpunk has. And there was nothing even close.
And then the whole glitches, compilations, debugs, like that whole conversation got centered on that no one could talk about anything that game did well. Maybe now with the new versions. So
that I can actually say it on record, I'm so glad that you got to see the true beauty of Cyberpunk, both physical and within it as well, because the whole idea is that, just like with Twitter, it's everyone has like one little idea, like a couple of people do, and then everyone all of a sudden does, even though they don't. Like, they've experienced it, but it becomes filtered through the eyes of whoever was.
It gets heightened. Like anything negative, it gets 100 times heightened in the social media sphere. That you sometimes feel it's hyperbole or not. In Cyberpunk's case, in the base console area, the hyperbole was warranted. You were completely oblivious to it because you managed to get a PS5 around that time.
And I genuinely didn't think people were being accurate with their statements at first. I was like, what are you talking about? It can't be that bad, right?
Yeah. And then it got removed.
Then I found out all of the worst of it, and I went, oh, this is actually really terrible. And then I went through and played it on my PS5, like, besides the crashes, not really having too many problems. But
with experience tainted at that point.
Right, but then it's like, just like we found out with the shortage of the next gen consoles, there were not even close to enough people to champion the game through that side of it. Even PC having issues where like those small minority of people were like, no wait guys, it's actually kind of good, just the hardware needs to catch up to it. And that just got buried under the absolute hatred and the death threats and all of the really messed up stuff that people decided to throw at CDPR, which a lot of it was warranted and asked for in certain ways, not the death threats. Like,
death threats are never warranted, but actual criticism of them putting that game out just because of trying to fulfill a financial bonus quarter thing. It's seeing the game now in proper hardware and seeing the work. I couldn't stop being sad, being like, man, what could have been if this had been the first opening salve of this game, even if it had happened now.
Oh,
But
if it had held its own, we would be getting all that free DLC right now, and I can only imagine how fleshed out it would be by this point. But now it's like, because they went way too hard on marketing way too
mhm.
early
And
and did
everyone
a
hyped the
lot of
game,
really
the hell out of
poor
this game.
ideas. Oh, it's not. No,
Yeah,
it didn't work out.
that's what's sad. And maybe now that we're finally here. Next gen consoles are proliferating slightly a little bit more, and maybe by the time they release their first mini DLC, maybe that's when the conversation will start changing. But I will say, if you wanted the conversation to change, you wouldn't release it next to the big game, which is Horizon Forbidden West, that I really want to talk about.
Yes,
But
that's gonna be what we may mostly talk about. You covered all the ones that you wanted to cover.
yeah, it was just the other two, Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk, that I touched. I was like, remember when I told you I was in a little bit of a gaming depression, and then suddenly the Cyberpunk thing dropped, and then when I said it was just 50 gigs, I was like,
Yep.
I can try it. It's just 50 gigs compared to the 100 gigs that I had to install on PS4, and then just reading the Bloody Baron quest. But yeah, it was just trying to lead up to Horizon Forbidden West, my number one most anticipated game of this year, and your number 6. And when we did that episode,
I would say it got a lot higher leading up to it, because the more I was finding out about it, the more I was really realizing that they had put a lot of effort into this. It wasn't just a sequel to them. It was, this is our chance to make our mark on the industry. And boy, did they deliver.
Absolutely. It's like
they put so much effort into every piece of that game, every shot. I actually was able to pull my wife over and be like, hey, just look at this game for a second. And I unpaused it. It was a setting sun over like sort of deserty plains, and there was like wind,
the robot debris of like
the sand. It was so cool looking. And then like I was in the middle of like a meadow, so the grasslands were kind of flowing, and in the distance was one of the Titan machines, all grown over with trees and stuff. And I was just like, oh, that's good. I like that. That is nice.
It's evocative. Do you know what it reminds me of? Because I keep mentioning this. It's like, that's the feeling Shadow of the Colossus left to me in 2005. So much is evocative that you don't know just by looking at the world. I feel Forbidden West more than Zero Dawn kind of nails what this game's setting is, as kind of like that post apocalyptic area where you're seeing remnants of what destroyed the world as you're going through that Forbidden West, as is in the title, and done now with like better storytelling, much better storytelling than the original game.
Like, and the dialogue is so clean, and I think was
performances.
Said,
and the
performance and the script. It's like, it's so much more concise, and it's like everyone's saying things that need to be said rather than we're just randomly talking.
It's Witcher-esque in how its side quests like build up the world. They're not a distraction. That's kind of like what Hoglaw was saying. And I believe I totally vibe with that, because I've done every side quest that has popped, that I see the green question mark or the green like exclamation point, and I immediately go for it. And in the Zero Dawn, there was a clear delineation between what the main quests were that were very well produced, and then you would do side quests that had like very stiff animation. And that would take you out of that
difference sometimes.
Not anymore with this.
Was this like an actual animated cutscene? But then like I would try to skip one of the pieces of dialogue, and if it was a real cutscene, it wouldn't let me. But if it was, it would just kind of jump it, and I was like, this is their regular dialogue. Because the animations are so well hidden that it's only sometimes when I see one of them like do like a little scripted moment where I'm like, wait a minute, I saw that. And I was like, oh, because this is like not main stuff, but like randomly within the story, the side quests will be actual cutscenes, and they'll kind of interchange them sometimes. And I just
the fact that they're so similar in an open world RPG, I think that's a great achievement.
it's all in engine, so it's like being rendered in the same exact way, and I just can't spot the differences. And there's something about those moments, I call it the Final Fantasy VII remake reveal,
Mm-hmm.
where you have the cutscene and it pans around the character, and
And
then
you
all
start
of a
moving.
sudden you're
Mhm.
in, and I'm like, woo! It that gets me to this day. I remember Uncharted doing it,
Mhm.
probably at least the first of my memory, and then into everything else. But oh, those chills that I get from some of that stuff. And I do want to gush about another environmental thing, was that back in the day for Zero Dawn, I didn't really care much about the cauldrons. They were
Mhm.
cool, they were unique, but they kind of after a while got a little samey. But
Mhm.
I've done two of them now, and not
Same.
only are they both so different, but I just, oh, the lighting, oh my gosh. And then the fact that now you're able to see the reflections on Aloy's metallic parts of her armor in
Yeah.
the environment she's in. And I put on the armor set that you liked a whole
The
lot.
Karja one that
Um,
has like the big helmet.
yeah, which obviously I'm a man that does not want to see the helmet, so I got rid of that.
Mhm.
But just the armor itself, with all of like the metal pieces, I changed the color of it, and it's just like reflecting the
Do you put it red?
soft
I put it
yellow
red.
glows.
I
I
put it
put it
red.
red,
Yeah.
because I didn't really like the colors of the basic version, and then I
Mhm.
found out after that mission that I did it on, it's story progression that unlocks dyes.
Yeah.
So that made me excited, because at first I was like, there's like two options. What the heck?
So you're
Um,
at the base, right? Or you're past the base?
I got past the base. That
Mhm.
is actually, I wanted to talk about that. So, um, do we want to talk any spoilers at all, or should I just keep it like general?
Are you able to do it without being very specific about it?
I can,
If not,
yeah.
go for it because it.
So, just the fact of there is a point where you think, all right, this is where the game really begins. When, of course, you get into the Forbidden West, and it's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, this is where the game starts. No,
It's
there
much
is
later.
there is more setup leading into the climax of that first act, and I will not say the details, but there's a point where you get a solid piece of progression, and
Mhm.
you unlock a location that you can use.
Mhm.
That is where I went, that is not at all what I expected out of this game,
Yeah.
and it makes me very excited for what the rest of this game is going to be about. Because my gosh, like the infrastructure that they're laying out for you to fill with your own progression, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, because I love visual progression where I get to like go through the game where my base is and
This game is
whatever I'm
perfect
doing.
with visual
It's just
progression.
like,
This game.
oh, I'm seeing like the results of my work, and I love that. Um, and maybe that's because I used to play like Sim Coaster and City Builders all the time, and I
Mhm.
loved seeing the little dudes run around. But now it's like when you see it in such a different context, but just pushed to its extreme, it feels great. So that was
How
one thing I wanted to make sure I said.
yeah, how much exploration have you done? Like go
As
you're out
often
the
as I can. I'll go out of my way if I see that there's a question mark in the area.
Mhm.
I'll go to the question mark. I'll run through. And at first, I was going to use the fast travel all the time like I did in the first game, but now I'm like, unless I'm really far away, I'll just
Mhm.
run there. Like, I mean, with my mount and everything. But that's what led me to find the God of War Easter egg that I won't
Mhm.
ruin for you.
Yeah, I need to find that.
It's do you want me to tell you kind of where it
Yeah,
is ish?
where is it? It's so I can kind of go
So I
there.
went through the main story. Um, there's a cauldron that I went through called Moo, I think, which was a side.
Yeah, it's not the cauldron you did from the story
Right.
with the partners. You
It's
do it by
there's
yourself, right?
like a dip in that the map area that goes to like, it was like the ice bird area. There's
Mm-hmm.
like a base there for them to like roost and stuff. If I was running over there, and I won't say what it was, but there was a machine with something nearby, and Aloy mentioned it. I was gonna run straight past it to the objectives,
Uh,
and I was like, wait, that seems like a weird thing for her to say. Let me check that out. And sure enough, there was like an Easter egg item that led me through a track to another area that had the actual Easter egg where she talked about it. And I was like, that was really neat. And
That's
it
so
gave
cool.
me like a little, it wasn't actual items that I could use, but it was like resources, I think, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah, and I feel this is where like that's good that you mentioned it, because a lot of praise has to be mentioned about this game's way of pulling you in an adventure, like feeding that like exploration that Skyrim did really well. Breath of the Wild did really well. This game is not quite those games, but it nails that spirit of
Yeah. It's
of
very
wanting to
much
go
that
everywhere
that
and
is a
being
weird thing
rewarded.
on that hill, and let me go see what it is. And usually there's always something there that's worth my time. And that's, I think, what the Zero Dawn kind of messed me up with, because it would have the stuff, but it
Mhm.
didn't really have the reason to look for it.
And the
It was
variety.
like, all right, run through this blown out building while you go to your next place. And I'm like, all right, whatever. But now it's like, okay, go to that thing and it'll have like a cool explanation for why this is here. Maybe there's an not an audio thing, but like a little note there, some resources, because it's like, even if you don't care about the lore, at least there's like something to get there now.
And the lore is
that's what
better
a lot of
fleshed
games-
out here, I feel
Yeah,
like, because
it's more
obviously
concise.
Zero Dawn was about the introduction. Like the main thing pulling you through that story is what happened. Like
True.
what is Zero Dawn? Like why are these robots here? What happened to civilization? And to be fair to Zero Dawn, they answer those questions. Those are
They
the
do.
kind of if you went by the Lost style of storytelling, those would have been answers you would have gotten in seasons 2 or 3 or much later. And
Yeah.
and to be fair, for that first game, they gave you all of that, to the point where a lot of people were like, where does this go from here? And
Right.
Initially, from a story perspective, I was having that question. I was like, okay, what's the angle now? And to be fair to the game, it gives you the angle. It at least justifies its existence for why they're continuing the story beyond just learning how the world happened. Obviously, there's typical doomsday scenario. Just that's typical in role-playing games. I feel that's like a traditional story engine, but it works. And by also fleshing out everything you did in the first game, and many returning characters that I had completely forgotten about in the first game, at least I'm vibing with them more
Well, they
here.
were so forgettable in the first game, but by the end of like the first couple hours of Forbidden West, I was like, I would die for this dude, because I don't know why, I just didn't connect with them as well. Probably because, I mean, the dialogue wasn't as good, maybe performances weren't as solid, but I don't know why.
And it was a game you were not vibing with. Remember, I beat you over the head for 2 years since we've been doing this show to give that game a chance.
I stand by a lot of it. I just look at Erend, for instance. I love to talk about this because at first I didn't even realize he was an important character, because he was just dressed the exact same as all the other dudes out there. I couldn't remember who he was, where he was from.
And he was early in Zero Dawn. That's what's funny. He was early on in Zero Dawn.
He just showed up and he was doing his thing, but I was like, okay, so he's just like the guard guy and that's it. And then he just like, he showed up at the end of the game and I was like, why are you here? But I'm really glad that like I kind of took the time, both because I had a really bad habit of, because I didn't care as much about the storyline, I would kind of skip over some stuff and I would skim it, and I'm like, okay, I'm getting the gist of it, let's get back to the fun stuff. And then also not like, whenever you talk to somebody and it gives you that tree, that wheel of like, hey, you can talk to them about all this stuff, sometimes I wouldn't bother with it, because I just did not want to follow along with all that stuff. And now I found myself clicking on every single one of those dialogue pieces because it feels like an entire monologue of a cutscene from Metal Gear Solid put into that one little tree, and I'll be sitting there for about 5 minutes just like eating popcorn, like, oh shoot, what?
absorbing everything.
And even then, it's like, you hear all of this crazy information and context for stuff, and then it goes back, and you're like, all right, now what else do you want to know? And I'm like, oh yeah, I was in the middle of this conversation that wasn't even about this. What were you about to say?
No, like, it's the beauty of sequels. Like, and also the beauty of when you got to finish Zero Dawn. I think it's almost serendipitous that you were able to finish it literally a month ago. Like, literally like a month ago, you were able to finish that game. Since you were so close, I booked club that game for you to finally get through it, and you were still insisting on not doing it. And getting to click when you did, and take that now through a sequel that just puts you out there. Now you're finally invested.
They
You're
really
not
don't waste any time once you set it up. They're like, all right, this is what happened in the first game. That's done. Let's move on.
Exactly.
Like even the voiceover at the very start of the game is like, all right, we summed up the entirety of the first game.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it.
And to me, the best part is that the things that were already good about the game have been retained from Zero Dawn and improved here, like the combat. Combat is something that some people vied with in the first one. Others had a hard time. It's the same. That's what's so funny, but with tiny little, but with now tiny little quality of life things that make it even better. Like for example, the Far Cry style of hunt for this specific thing to be able to craft this. Just the fact that, because I don't remember, I would have to go back to Zero Dawn to do this, but when you're scanning a robot, you can press the D-pad left and right, and it kind of like highlights something.
At first, you had to use it with the right stick to manually go over it, and sometimes it would keep catching the wrong one. And then you could not. I think you had to tag it in a special way to leave it that.
It didn't have the tag that you have now, that you press triangle and it tags it in a purple
that makes
one.
It so much
and
easier.
When you have it there, and in the info that pops up when you're scanning, it tells you quest item. So if you're, so you know, okay, I have to target that specific area of this robot to tear that thing out, and that's going to give me the upgrade for whatever you're trying to upgrade or trying to purchase. In the first game, there was so much left to RNG in a way that it's not here.
There's like a chance of it dropping and all of that stuff. I mean, it is for the hunting animals, which I realized was one of the reasons why I struggled so much, is I didn't actually realize you had to hunt the animals until like a good chunk of the way through the game. I didn't realize that was a thing at all. I just thought they were like part of the thing, the like environment or whatever.
And they
like,
did
okay,
this,
cool. There's
and they did this even better now, because sometimes you need hides from animals.
Yeah.
Aim at the head. If you don't aim at the head, you're not gonna get the hide. And that wasn't something that was in the first one. They added that. This is very tiny, but I was noticing because I spent a lot of time in the Daunt, the first initial area that you could say it's this game's version of the Great Plateau before the Forbidden West officially opens. So you get the glide and you're fully free hunting animals. And I was like, I'm killing like raccoons left and right. What's happening? Why am I not getting the hide that I want? And so one time I aimed at the head, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Oh, I guess I just did it because I didn't want to have to waste more arrows on the creature. So I hit him in the head every time. And I have realized that progression is a lot easier because I have so many more items, and then the skill progression system being so much better fleshed out and understanding what to focus on. Specifically the stuff where it's like if you pick up
warrior,
all of that. I mean, shoot, I haven't even talked about the combat yet, but the medicine, like pick up a medicine, you get 2 of the item. Pick up other resources, you get more of those resources. It takes less resources to make arrows and other weapons. It's like that stuff that I waited until like the end of the game to get is now one of the first things you can get. And that makes my life so much easier. I have one question though. I could have sworn it was impossible for you to trip on your own tripwires in the first game. Am I making that up? Because I could have sworn you could just kind of walk over them. So
my thing is that I barely use tripwires in Zero Dawn.
Oh,
so
dude,
you use them a lot. So I would be lying.
Like I had to in the first one.
Yeah, I would be lying to. I really like the long distance combat and just equip myself with all the different types of arrows that had the different elements. That's kind of how I played. To be fair to the game, it allows you. Some people straight up just use tripwires all the time.
Yeah, I mean, now there's an entire category that just boosts all of your trapping abilities, so you don't even have to shoot them. They'll run at you and die if you can do it. And I remember that was a thing in like The Witcher 3 where if you boosted up like your grenade and potion abilities, you could just break the game through that if you wanted to. So I love this level of freedom.
Absolutely. And it just feels more malleable. It just feels more fleshed out. And have you finally clicked with the fact that the combat is very Dead Space? That it really is about when you find the robots, that
when you think
it's about tearing down the specific areas. No other game other than Dead Space does it. It's just funny because if you just play it, it's like aim at the head, shoot at the head all the time. It's like sometimes you see the health going and that feels bad. But when you play it
does.
with the Dead Space mentality, it's like, no, I'm here to tear down the important elements of every robot in the chaos that's happening all the time as you're aiming. That is exhilarating, and it's just some of the most fun combat in an open world. Like,
I
to
think
me,
it
that's
helps that they added a lot more variety of weaponry
Mhm.
because I mean that was one of the problems I remember I said on record I think was like you have the slingshot, the bow, and the trip caster, and I mean yeah you have like rope caster and a couple other things, but
you
those are
have the
like your
stick that
main
had that
bread
like
and
it was like a
butter.
little machine gun. I still didn't
Yeah,
even have one of those in this game, and there's one because
yeah.
there's upgrade for
Um,
that.
so I know like those were like your main bread and butter in Horizon Zero Dawn, and I was just like, that's really all you get, and like especially the slingshot and the arrow kind of just operate the same.
Mm-hmm.
But this time it's like you get the javelin, you get the bows, which have their different versions, you
Mm-hmm.
get the of course slingshot, the trip caster, you got the rope caster, you got the thing that's all of a sudden it's like a discus
Uh-huh.
thrower.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
that thing freaking crushes stuff.
yeah.
Which I bought that on a whim, and I was like, I don't even know what
Man,
this is
fighting
because like
that.
the thing didn't look like anything specific. I didn't know
Uh-huh.
what it was. And then when I loaded it up, oh my gosh, I was
Fighting
amazed.
against the kangaroos with that thing. It's so funny. And all
Right.
the variety that they added extra, the extra robots on top of the ones that already existed.
Oh yeah, the
in
variety of
Zero
robots, and then you're like, oh, it's a kangaroo, or like,
Yeah.
oh, it's this thing, and then, the fact that they were like, all right, we're just gonna put dinosaurs in the game now is just.
Yeah. Have you fought the ones that are basically the Velociraptors? Those
Yes.
guys suck.
I
in a
love
good way.
them
They're
so
just
much
hard.
though. Now correct me. They showed in the first like trailer that she can ride one, right?
Yeah, but you have to like unlock the overrides.
I figured, but
Mhm.
I really want to get one of those, and I hope it's like I can switch the previous like charger or whatever to that
Mhm.
as like the one that I call instead of having to override it every time.
Remember, there's
Um,
gonna be flying animals that you'll be able to
I know.
override and then fly eventually. So
But what I wonder is like, is there going to be a different call for them, or
I
like,
assume it's the same one. You have the override with whatever you have override at a certain time, and then you have the whistle thing and the D-pad down.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But then it's like it kind of just decides whatever it is, because I remember in the first game it was always like a variant of either the charger, it was like the ram horn one, or like the one that just looked like a horse head.
Mhm.
But it depended on what part of the map you were in. So I was like, I wonder if they're going to try to do that, where it's like if you're in a certain area you can call the Velociraptor or whatever.
There's such a huge map left for me. I played this game for 21 hours already.
Jeez,
And
I probably put a good chunk in yesterday, but I
Mhm.
don't think I'm at that level yet.
But it's because I told you, I was like, I'm committing to platinuming this game. I saw the Power Picks trophy guide. He says that you can do it in 40 hours if you do everything.
Nice.
So I was like, if there's something that I really like about these Sony open world games is that the platinums is about doing everything. So I don't mind doing that, especially when exploring is so fun. Ghost of Tsushima had that. Ghost of Tsushima had a lot of fun exploration also. So the fact that let's put it this way, I got into the base. Let's put it like the base.
Yeah.
21 hours in, and I don't feel
and
burnt
that's,
out.
like, it feels like the real starting point of the game. too.
Exactly, and I don't feel
So
burnt out.
that's-
How many times I've said open world games I just can't stand anymore,
They're exhausting.
and this one is not. And I feel it's finally hit me because when we play a lot of open world games, we play the Ubisoft kind. The Ubisoft kind has devolved into these RPG-ish open world games that are all about extending your playtime because of level gating you. Like if you go to this area, you're gonna be level 10 beneath this. And what's funny is that Horizon also has levels, but you never feel like you're level gated.
No, and
Never.
it's like if you're smart about it, you can still beat stuff that's way better than you
Mhm.
if you're good at it. And I mean, like using the entire stealth tree to be able to use stuff. You got smoke
Oh, you
bombs
would
now and
believe that I
stuff.
have that fully upgraded.
Oh,
That and
do you
Warrior.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I am. Yeah, I Warrior. I mean, I guess we can talk briefly about the combat and stuff because I mean, as we spoke on it before, there was a strong attack and
Mhm.
a light attack, and that was all you could do.
Yes.
And like some contextual critical strike, whatever's.
Those are
But
still
now
here.
it's. I mean, they do.
But
But I'm
they're
just meaning,
slightly
like-
improved, and you can unlock combos, but you
Right,
have to go
which-
down the Warrior list heavily.
And just the ability to combo your moves one of my favorite series again, big old DMC
Uh-huh.
itself, that has delay button presses
Uh-huh.
in
This one has
Horizon.
it. Yeah.
And it's got your charge up moves. You can just figure out how to stagger an enemy and chain them like that. You can hit multiple enemies. There's like zoner moves.
Mhm.
It's just there's
And
so
the
many
best part
options.
in those delay moves, just keep looking at the staff. The staff will tell you when to continue the move.
I
Click
know.
R1, then it illuminates. You can continue doing it. And
That's oh man.
I love
And
the combo that is R1, R2, R2. You hit and then you jump with the strong attack and then fall. That one's good to escape yourself from this
I
the
think my favorite is
scavengers.
the 2 light attacks and 1 strong.
That one's
And
good
then
to like take the shield out of things. But
Yeah.
like for the when fighting robots, try to get to the unlocking the R1, R2, R2 because
I'm gonna
the
get that.
scavengers are tough sometimes if they get a jump on you. So it's
Mhm.
good to do that because then that gets critical hits in and you
Yeah.
can stun them so you can then do the critical attack.
Right, which is so helpful. It's such a fun game in general. Let me think if there's anything else that I haven't said yet that I
So
want
we
to.
can take some negatives. I would say, I don't know if you've seen most. What are you playing it on? Are you playing it on performance or resolution?
Definitely performance.
I
I switched it over to the 60 frames per second and I could not go back. I was going through that. Would say that you're right in that some of the spots don't look quite right. Like the
shimmering.
characters look fantastic. Yes, shimmering, that's what it's called. Where it's like that kind of resolution isn't matching up with what the asset is. I still don't fully understand how it works myself. So
so apparently from understanding what Digital Foundry found, because I like reading their technical breakdown. So playing on resolution mode, you're playing it at a locked 4K resolution at 30 frames per second.
Right.
And then when you go to the performance mode, it's 1800p upscaled to 4K, but also has dynamic resolution scaling up and down.
So it's not 1440.
No, it's not 1440. It's above it, but it goes up and down in the resolution.
Okay.
But apparently there's a shimmering issue that's a bug that they said that restarting the game would fix. But now they said that they're gathering all feedback because they're going to put a patch out. So maybe that will be fixed because...
I just thought that was going to be the way it is because sometimes there's games that just look like that. And you're like, oh, well, I guess this just sucks.
Yeah, to me, is it because this game is just so astonishingly pretty that this is the rare time because I've been the performance 60 frames guy from here on out. I really broke my my commitment and I'm actually playing it at 30 at the full resolution mode because it is so incredibly sharp, and Gorilla did such a great job at having such minimum input lag that even when I'm playing at 30, I'm not feeling like I'm losing response time that obviously you get with 60 frames. I'm still like getting headshots left and right. It feels, it reminds me because I did try this because they patched this out for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. In the 120 frames mode, you can up the resolution and do like 40 frames. That feels still like it's lesser frame rate, but you don't perceive it, and you still get super response time. And on top of that, you get higher the higher fidelity. It reminds me of how smooth the 30 frames is, because I've said it before. Like I used to not care about 30 frames as long as the 30 frames were always solid. The problem with 30 frames is that as soon as you go down, you really notice it. In 60 frames, you don't notice it as much because you have more frames for that. So it's really interesting because, and I tell you, I kept going back and forth, doing 60, doing 30, doing 60, doing 30, doing 60. Like I just couldn't decide because I was like, because it's a really smooth 60. If you like 60 frames per second, they did it really well here. It's just as solid as many other games that go for 60 on the PS5. But seeing just that shimmering, I was like, this game is just so pretty. I just kind of wanted my eyes to really feast. This is why I got a 4K TV. And I think it's props to them that both modes work. Like for example, going back to Cyberpunk, I tried both modes, the ray tracing 4K 30 and the performance mode 4K 60. I absolutely stay at 60 because it didn't feel good to play at 30. It had like this weightiness to it that for Horizon doesn't have it. So I think it's just not just about the frame rate itself, but how you program your game and how your engine runs it. Because 30 frames that feel heavy, of course I'm always going to go for 60. Guerrilla did it well where you feel snappy even at 30. And then your eyes just get so used to it and it feels really smooth. However, I would say this game, from a glitchiness perspective, as someone that really devoured Zero Dawn back in 2017, I feel this game has more hitches than that. But also, I think that happens because this game is even more ambitious. Like, now you have more climbing here than there. There's more things being rendered. And like Aloy's hair is like snakes sometimes. It's like it moves so much.
Yeah, that kind of messes me up where it just like all over the place, like she's underwater. Even
there's some clipping happening when you're climbing stuff. Like you start clipping through the environment. Sometimes your outfits, especially like in the helmet that I wear, right? Sometimes this part of the helmet starts like blending with the cheeks. So I was like, oh, okay, yeah. I caught that, but I'm at the like no open world's perfect. Even Ghost of Tsushima had its collision. It's like open worlds are always so inherent that you're gonna run into some glitches. It's how good the quality surrounding that is for that to not matter, and I feel that hits here. Yes, there's some hitchiness here, but at no point, literally at no point, has that like really took me out of the game, like it would have done maybe Cyberpunk did in base PS4 in December 2020. It's just so much good stuff with this.
Oh yeah, I would say like another negative that I would come into is sometimes with the platforming, the animation can kind of mess up for me. Similarly, I would say once again we're going back to Assassin's Creed. Yeah, you can't get that perfect ever, because sometimes I'll be looking at the thing and I see the thing and I make the run and I jump and then she just does not go where I said, and then she drops. But then she doesn't fully die, so I have to climb all the way back up, whatever it is. Because
you're talking about the Death's Door quest where there's like water beneath, and you're kind of going through things.
So that was the first step of it. But there's been moments since then that have done similar reactions to me. There was like one of the cauldrons where I had to run and hit this glowing yellow piece, and she went for like a further point of it and then missed, and I was like. It's a scripted animation. How did you miss?
And that's what's funny, because jumping here is not as scripted as Assassin's Creed. You have more control of where you jump. It feels more like platformy, like Mario-ish.
Where circle instead of where every other game is drop, that is where she catapults herself off to the side, and square is drop.
It drops.
And getting on the mount is square instead of triangle like every other game. So it's like sometimes it's muscle memory, and that's a really petty thing to be frustrated
but
about.
It can be said because other games mounting to your mount is always triangle instead of square, and I think it was triangle in Zero Dawn. I could be wrong.
Really?
Yeah, okay. I could be wrong, but that's the thing. Like I played Horizon Zero Dawn last year, so memory. I'm actually really curious after I finish Forbidden West. I'm gonna pop Zero Dawn again just to see how much.
I don't think I could ever go back to Zero Dawn. If there's any new fans, I'm gonna tell them just start with Forbidden West. Don't even touch it. Like where I love it, but think about it. It summarizes all of the stuff that happens in Zero Dawn, and everything about Forbidden West is like an improvement.
I will say this. I will say start with Zero Dawn. If it's not vibing, jump immediately to Forbidden West, because I do stand behind the story of the Zero Dawn, because they haven't, at least from what I've seen here, they keep mentioning references to Zero Dawn, what it was, which was how this dude completely erased all traces of what humanity was to let humanity kind of start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And they keep mentioning that dude, but they haven't mentioned exactly what he did. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, remember he did that thing. So I don't know if that would really resonate with people that just jumped into this one, despite the game doing a fairly good job at just summarizing stuff. Though, however, there's so many interactions early in the game that reference so much of that first game. Like if you had just played it, that I'm almost to the point where it's like, just play the first game and mainline it. If there's something that I really love about how they structure this, is that you can play this as an Uncharted game, just mainline. You don't like have to engage with the side content if you don't want to. I wouldn't recommend that, because there's some really cool side content, especially in this one. But on Zero Dawn, I could definitely say, you can definitely skip stuff, because there was more fetchiness in there than the longer quest lines that you get here. So I would say definitely just or if you're not vibing with Zero Dawn, watch a playthrough and at least get the story, because the story is what made the original game.
True.
The entire game has caught up with the story here. So
yeah. I think that was just about everything. I mean, I really like just about everything else going on. Just even the simple stuff of dropping into water and then you just go underwater. You could see the fish going around.
Yes, and there's an upgrade later on. There's an upgrade later on where you can get like a breather.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that so bad.
Yeah, when I learned that because like I said, I was exploring everything. There's many question marks in the initial Forbidden West area that are beneath water. That was like,
yeah,
there's gotta be like a breather, and then I went online and I was like, yeah, she has a breather. I'm gonna get it later. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna mainline gameplay I think had her hiding from some of the dinosaurs underwater, using the rebreather. I think
exactly. So when I remember that, I was like, yeah, I'll just keep mainlining this until I get all the upgrades. So whenever I'm fully exploring, I get it, because since I did so much exploring in that first area, there's many things that are like very Metroid. Hey, come back here when you have the item. So
yeah. Which I haven't had too many of those.
There's very few
flowers, and then there's like one other thing that I'm like, I don't have anything for that. I don't know what that is.
But but now you know that you just have to mainline. It's just keep mainlining it. It's kind of like the Spider-Man problem that you kept mainlining and more side quests kept popping up.
Yeah. So. Which I kind of respect that, because if you play it like you're used to playing it, where you just keep doing all the side stuff, and then you're like, gosh, this is a slog, and then you do like one more main mission, you're like, oh yeah, so here's this whole new way to play the game that'll make your life a lot easier, and you're like, crap, I wish I had that like 10 hours ago. I've hit that a few times,
and the game loads so quick that I don't mind fast traveling somewhere else, and knowing that it's so easy.
Fast travel in the base PS4 version is so difficult.
Exactly. Yeah. and Aloy feels so much better to move now, that it's not a slog going through the world like it eventually becomes in Zero Dawn. Like when Zach mentioned that, it's like, I get it, because especially late in that game, in Zero Dawn, you go from this point in the map all the way to this other point in the map.
Yeah.
And Aloy didn't feel too good to move because you didn't have much. You were so stuck in the ground at times with very few areas where you can actually climb. I will say is like the fact that Death Stranding used this engine, I think was serendipitous for Forbidden West, because
I can see it.
Because they added the kind of terrain formation that allow her to finally climb a little bit more than it did in the original game. Because in the original game, you could only climb what was yellow. There's yellow stuff here, but you can climb other stuff that are more like edgy.
Right.
But not everything, like if it's Assassin's Creed or Zelda. Maybe that's where technology will move them next whenever they do a third game. So, yeah, I'm really impressed. It's rare for me. It's rarely where I've had a game I've been anticipating for so long deliver without much reservations, and it feels good. I like when games like that do this. And obviously, and probably the most exciting thing is that I have this, and now I have a couple palette cleansers. The one that came out today, and we'll see tomorrow. The reviews for Elden Ring hit.
And
we'll see if that's another palette cleanser.
I think it's gonna be good, but I worry that it's going to be too similar. Like, I know in gameplay, like, there's going to be different options, but it feels so much like that. All right, get lost in this world in medieval setting, but also it's like really dark and there's supernatural stuff. But
you're
it's
talking
like,
Elden Ring, right?
Yeah. I am worried that if I try putting that in and also trying to play Horizon, I'm going to get burnt out on one, if not both.
Yeah.
So
but you got Destiny in the middle there as the perfect.
I do. So I'm going to be bouncing between Destiny and Horizon, but I think I'm going to try to at least finish Horizon before I move on to Elden Ring.
I definitely want to, like, tomorrow when this posts and from when we're recording, the review embargo lifts, and there's been a lot of chatter that we may be seeing a lot of high reviews. So based on the hype that I haven't seen this kind of hype from like the influencer / media side since Breath of the Wild, to tell you a little bit of where
they were smart about it. They gave specific people like
the
full
preview
access to like a preview build of it. And I don't think a single person said, oh, I didn't like this from a personal standpoint, or this is just bad. It's always been, oh, this is really cool, and I got to play it in the way that I like. And
they said that it was almost unrestricted access to how they were able to preview Elden Ring, which usually previews are like the very specific slice of
It's like a guy
game.
standing over your shoulder going, all right, you need to hit square right now. You need to move to the left right now.
Yeah, that's why that if they had that kind of confidence to give that kind of preview last year, then it means they're really confident about what they have here. So,
and how long ago that build was, which how like polished it was too.
October, November.
I know it's like that was a long amount of time for then to now, and then just all the stuff. I actually finally watched that overview trailer that you had posted. Because I was busy at the time and I forgot it existed, and I went back and went, "Oh crap, this looks really cool."
That's what I'm telling you, because just inside baseball, we are doing the account share thing where we create one because we're both paying for the game so we can play more without having to break the bank because we don't get paid with this. We get paid by our actual jobs. I initially said I think Horizon will be good for now, and then Elden Ring will be there because it's not milk. The problem has been just the hype that has been like leading up there. There's like, man, a lot of people, sometimes when something is so imminent like this, sometimes you kind of want to part it and see what the fuzz is about. So we'll see. The reviews are tomorrow. Eventually we'll play Elden Ring, but one day, whether it's immediately or a few weeks from now. Remember, Stranger of Paradise is also in the middle of that, so we definitely have to close the loop there.
We'll get there eventually, man. What a weird way to end that wave of games where it's like good game, and it's like, ooh, that's gonna be.
Stranger of Paradise is good. I still stand by that.
It
but
might be, but it's like not good in the same
way.
No,
not in the caliber. This is like the caliber of Horizon Forbidden West, and even Sifu just a few weeks ago.
This is gonna be like watching a Michael Bay movie. You just have to turn your brain off in some ways.
No, we're going from Scorsese to Michael Bay.
Yeah, there it is. That's it. And I'm so worried about that.
Yeah, but hey, it'll be fun because it'll finally close the loop of something that I haven't stopped pummeling you since E3 of last year. Yep. So
what a way you've managed to somehow manipulate me into being the one to buy it.
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm never gonna live that one down.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You set it up, so I was like, oh, actually, do this.
No,
and this is like, I couldn't picture a more perfect way for that to
I was like, no, I'll pay for the other one halfway. Just let me do it. I don't want to be the one to buy Strangers of Paradise all the way.
But yeah, that's all we've been playing, Paul. We got a few news here. I don't think we have to stay much in there, so
no.
Press X
for some news.
All right, so story number one. Thank you, Sony, for dropping this right today when we're recording. After revealing the existence of the PlayStation VR2 back at CES this past January, which feels like a million years ago, that was just this past January. That's obviously I got COVID in the middle of that, so that's why that felt longer for me. Sony has officially revealed the official look at the headset as well as the updated and final design of the PlayStation VR2 Sense controller, as you can see in the screen, as I'm going to be putting it in post. The look of the headset and controllers is inspired by the sleek white design of the main PS5 console, and they reiterate the new device's capabilities to deliver games in stunning visual fidelity in 4K HDR and state-of-the-art graphical rendering, enhanced tracking such an inside-out camera tracking. New PlayStation VR2 Sense technology features for both headset and controller feedback. Think about the DualSense if you have PS5. While reiterating the single cord setup compared to the nightmarish multiple cables of the first PSVR. Still no news on release date for the device. So this is looking real slick. I'll tell you that. It's like if there's something that Sony it's so expert at doing is doing slick hardware. Maybe the slickness got a little out of hand with the PS5 in a way because it's such a huge mammoth, but at least for the VR, the original PSVR, I thought it looked good. It felt great to put in. The problem with it was that it had
controllers.
Yeah, the PlayStation Move controllers are technology from 2010 that they had so many in storage because no one bought it, and they had that technology, and they were like, "Oh, we can use all these things that we didn't sell because it will make sense for this other thing," and it made sense. They were able to move controllers due to that, but the new controllers that look like the discs from Tron Legacy or just Tron, that was the first thing. I just trying to picture it, just putting it here, grabbing and having the circles. You would look like a maniac.
I look like a maniac?
No, everyone would look like a
Oh,
maniac with
I
the
was like,
thing
I'm
here.
sitting here.
No, you would, especially with your size. I can imagine you having that and just being the
Oh, yeah.
hulking 6'5" man playing
I think
VR.
it's terrifying. I cannot raise my arms a certain height
Mhm.
when I use VR. I definitely can't swing my arms too hard.
Yeah.
I have to make sure where I'm standing. It's a whole nightmare situation. But yeah, justice for tall boys. Anyway, for the VR2, I love the look of it. I love the idea of it. I love that they're just doing away with the move controllers because these new ones are supposed to be a lot more precise. And if I'm remembering right, the discs are supposed to be able to track your fingers, which is going to allow for like a whole new range of movement and motion for characters, especially something like VR chat, and which has been such a huge niche in the internet community nowadays, where I've seen whole YouTube videos or channels devoted to conversations people have had in VR chat of random stories of people talking about things, weird stuff that's happened. That was my VR chat talk for a second.
Yeah.
But everything else that you can do in that, I mean, just look at the games that have been possible lately on PSVR and some of the others. I'm not going to say them because I'm absolutely going to get it wrong, and I'm going to say what was on like the Oculus or something else because sometimes they blend together to me. But I'm happy that PlayStation's continuing to take a crack at this, and it's one area that nobody else is really trying.
Just think about it this way: it's like they abandoned the Vita. Funny that this came out in the year of the Vita, of the 10th anniversary of the Vita. PlayStation VR sold less than the PlayStation Vita, and they're still sticking with it because obviously VR is a nascent technology. It's not meant to be mass market adoption. They're trying. The price is coming down. Obviously, the Meta Quest 2, because Facebook's stupid by renaming themselves to Meta now.
Renamed it
to Meta Quest now.
I hate that.
Yeah,
I love the fact that it was just called the Quest. It was really cool, crisp. Anyway, Meta's never gonna catch on.
No, it'll just make them a laughing stock. And kind of like I mentioned, it's like the resolution of the PSVR was always low. It was always like 720p, so the games never looked great. But there were some great games in VR. Now because this is gonna still be tethered into the PS5, which is a much beefier machine. Remember that the original PSVR had to work on a base PS4, so it had to have like a base resolution. It could like work on those old machines. Now the base technology is the PS5s that we have, and they're tethered to that. Obviously, some people have made the criticism that it's like, it's so weird that Sony is being backwards by still having a VR headset that needs to be plugged into the machine, when the Quest VR2 has enough processing power to exist on its own. That's what has kept the price going down. The upside to that is that games are just going to look better there because they have more processing power. So
in the end, you just have to do what you got to do to make that product work. And for the PlayStation, they probably could have jammed a bunch of processing power into the headset, but then it would have been another 600 to 800 beasts.
Exactly.
And they don't want that, and nobody else wants it. I mean, imagine if they did all that work and they come out here and then they say it's going to be that price. It's like nobody's going to want to buy it and deal with that.
Yeah, and that's going to be
a niche thing.
Yeah, that's going to be like the interesting thing here, because PSVR still was the best selling of the VR units back in 2016 because of its price. At $399, it was much cheaper than an Oculus that was $600, than a Vive that was like $800. Price is going to be the determining factor here, especially because you already have a PS5 SKU that's $499 and $399. And it's also funny that they're still doing this, because getting a PS5 is still really hard. It's not something you can just walk to the store and get. So I do wonder if Sony is going to be releasing this new VR when the market is right, because they still have to satiate the immense demand of the console that they can't seem to satiate because of the superconductor problem. So it's still looking slick. Price will tell the tale. At least they have a Horizon launch game for that. It was like Horizon Call of the Wild, I think it was called.
Really?
And and it looked really cool. So they're doubling down on Horizon.
Did they make the Hitman VR for PlayStation, or was
Yeah,
it just?
no, it was originally on
Okay, I want to
PS4.
clown on the fact that the Hitman VR is completely broken. I found out it's terrible. Don't buy it. Anyway, that was it for that. I just wanted to say that last thing because I was really excited when they announced it right when I got into Hitman 3.
That's the thing. That was the
out,
PC version because
yeah.
the PS4 version has VR since last year. That launched with the system.
So both versions are just terrible. The hit registration is just awful. Throwing is just non-existent, and like you try to garrote somebody and it goes through their head. It's terrible. I watched a video on it and it was really funny.
Yeah, I haven't, so I have no opinion on that. So if you saw that, then you know.
Yep.
Number 2, Paul. Remember the countdown from last week when we were talking about Resident Evil?
And we were thinking it was going to be Resident Evil, didn't we?
Yeah, but then I realized that the Capcom Pro Tour was literally this week, so it made sense why this is what was announced. Street Fighter 6 has been officially announced by Capcom. Although initially leaked by the Capcom security breach of late 2020, Capcom finally confirmed the title's existence after the countdown from last week ended during the weekend. However, we still don't really know anything about the title other than Capcom is going to reveal more information around summer 2022. However, Capcom also announced the Capcom Fighting Collection, a faithful recreation of 10 fighting games from the company's history, including Darkstalkers, Night Warriors, Vampire Savior 1 and 2, Vampire Hunter 2, Red Earth, Cyberbots, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Super Gem Fighter Minimix, and of course, Hyper Street Fighter 2. The collection comes out on June 24, 2022 for Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC.
Have you ever seen a more 90s list of video game titles?
Yes, because these were all arcade games. If you went to arcade, this was them. That's what really blew my mind. It's like, yes, it's like Capcom did all of this. I remember most of these games. That's insane.
Like this was for sure before me, and I know
we were toddlers. We were literally toddlers.
All that stuff. But like I know I've at least heard of Darkstalkers. But like good for them for doing stuff like this and announcing like an actual collection of all these games to keep them alive, and announcing like rollback netcode for some of the other games that they're still online but have been a while since they released. Just like Capcom's freaking crushing it.
Touching up the art for it to look really well, and like preserving the art as it was, but it looking really well on a modern TV, because those arts were made for specific kinds of TVs back then,
right?
And specific kind of crystals for the arcade.
I might have shared something about that, where it's like if you remaster something that was designed for a CRT, it's like it's not a 1-to-1. You have to remake it for the new hardware,
because it's just not gonna go. Right. It's not gonna look right. So
yeah.
And I will say like Capcom is the king of the re-releases when it comes to like collections. The Mega Man X Legacy Collection 1 and 2, really excellent. So if these games are gonna get that treatment for fighting aficionados, that's gonna be good. As for Street Fighter 6 though, it's Street Fighter 6 is an interesting one because Street Fighter 5 was not an initially well-received game. It was a PS4 exclusive that came out on February 2016, and it launched without a story mode, because Capcom just wanted a new Street Fighter for the Capcom Pro Tour of that year. That's why they brought it. That's why they put that game out as it was. And it was when Capcom was really rough. They were not releasing new games. They were just remastering old games. Remember, the Renaissance started with Resident Evil 7 in 2017. So this was 2016. Street Fighter 5 with the Championship Edition and the Arcade Edition kind of like turned the ship around. But the initial impression still stuck. It's not the fighting game right now. Like Guilty Gear Strive has like really taken over a lot of people. Dragon Ball Fighter C, another one. Obviously, you have the Smash
on the way out on that one. I mean, Smash definitely. Mortal Kombat's almost like dead in the water at this point. Now that they've kind of taken support away from it. At this point, I think Guilty Gear might be one of the top. Man, that might be it.
No, that right now is because of the more recent offerings. So
because Tekken is struggling, Street Fighter is just like kind of there.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
Yeah, I follow someone on Twitter that's like very into the fighting genre. That he kind of mentioned it is like Street Fighter. It's not in the kind of like popular capacity for do the kind of tease that they did. That was just, this is here. We're gonna be here next time. And especially the things that they showed, it was just two characters. They showed Ryu as like getting the Chris Redfield Resident Evil 5 treatment of Chunky Chris, and another. I think it was the last character they added in Street Fighter 5. I don't know, but they need to say more. They're not the king right now. They're not the talk in the town when it comes to fighting games right now. So,
no,
but I will say I'm more confident with this game coming out now with this Capcom, not the 2016 Capcom.
I will at least clown on them again for their graphic design choices.
Yeah,
that is a terrible logo. What is wrong with you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Like somebody said, it just looks like a Bitcoin.
Yes.
And
I bet that's what they were planning on.
Oh, I really hope not. But yeah, I mean the fact that like the 6 is like a little bitty 6, and there's just a big old.
It looks like a notification. It looks like an app. It looks like the icon of an app, and then the 6 looks like you got 6 notifications.
I get that they're trying to do like we're going back to the roots, but it's like, oh come on guys, like at least try to give it some flair that the Street Fighter series is known for, you know.
And final thing, you know what? I'm also curious: is Street Fighter 6 going to be PlayStation exclusive? Because 5 never made it to Xbox. Never. That was never timed. That was like a true and true exclusive in its entire, and on PC obviously.
Huh, I never even thought of that.
Yeah, and also makes me curious because Street Fighter has always been a mainstay at EVO. Who just bought EVO last year?
Microsoft?
Sony.
I don't remember. Oh, Sony.
Sony bought EVO.
Oh yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
No, now I remember.
So it wouldn't surprise me if Street Fighter 6 is also a PlayStation exclusive due to 5 remaining like that, and apparently Capcom was fine with that, keeping it that way. But who knows? I will say though that if you were on Xbox, the fighting game community died on that machine when Street Fighter wasn't there. Despite getting other fighting games, it's just like the fighting game community is on PlayStation. So I wonder if Sony's gonna leverage the whole them own Evo, and they already did things with Street Fighter 5. So we'll see. Street Fighter is not really my thing, so but I'm hoping for the best. All right. So number 3. Time to clown. We're moving into Clownery Town. In a move that further emphasizes they're a company that doesn't understand the internet, Nintendo has announced they're closing down the eShop for the Nintendo 3DS and the Wii U by 2023. While Nintendo has announced that any previously purchased digital game from those stores will remain available to download even following the store's closures, considering what they did with the digital shop of the Nintendo Wii and cutting down the downloading functionality, there is cause for concern for the digital purchases made on those two systems. There is also cause for concerns for the status for game preservation. With so many games from previous Nintendo consoles that are only accessed via these two systems are now in danger of being lost, considering Nintendo's refusal to continue the Virtual Console in favor of a subscription model in the Nintendo Switch that has way less games than the Virtual Console. Nintendo.
There's not much that I want to say outside of this is a dumb move.
Mm-hmm.
I am so irreparably sad for the people that still play on any of these machines. The fact that so many games and so many indie games specifically that were only digitally released ever are never going to be able to be found anywhere else. At least something like Microsoft and Sony have created a play like an area carving out like a safety for a lot of old stuff. And I mean, at least for like PlayStation 3, you just can't really do much for that. But everything else, like they've kind of tried to find ways to at least give you access to a lot of those things, or at least allow virtual machines to kind of exist. But Nintendo is like, this is terrible, you're pirating our things, and then they take the ability to even play the games or buy the games away.
This is why people pirate, and this is what more people will pirate, because now you're not giving official access to these games like at all. That's why more people, there will be more piracy in these systems than ever before, because Nintendo being Nintendo, they just don't understand that when you're in a digital ecosystem, you have to keep those stores up.
Yeah.
And if you're worried about keeping a store up, then make sure those games are available in your next system. That is why, like, for example, everything is happening over on the Xbox side with the Xbox 360, despite not many games becoming backwards compatible because of the way they're treating licenses and blah, blah, blah. At least people know that when you're in the Xbox ecosystem, a majority of the games that matter are going to exist there. They just will. So they could announce right now, we're shutting down the Xbox 360 store and you cannot buy games there. People wouldn't care because like, no worries. We're good here in the Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S store because you did a good job of transmitting a bunch of these games to be fully purchasable now. PlayStation, obviously, they went through that kerfuffle last year when they announced they were going to close the PS3, PSP, and the Vita store. The PSP store is the one that completely went away, but you can still buy some games, a lot of the PSP games on the Vita. And they had to walk back them shutting down because obviously they were like, you're disrespecting their legacy, and they understood Nintendo's not going to be one that you're going to criticize and then not do it. They're too big for everyone to ever declare that they're wrong, and they absolutely don't care. If they had already made right now with the Wii U, this puts the original Xenoblade, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker on the clock. Those are the last 3 Wii U games that matter that they should transfer over to the Switch, because they literally did everything to transfer every freaking Wii U games into the Switch now. So I don't know about the 3DS. Like the 3DS is a little more tricky because of its 2-screen setup.
3DS has so many games on it that were like so specifically created for the 3DS that you'd have to basically
like the S was.
them, from the ground up. I mean, just look at even the big ones like Castlevania, Pokemon Ranger, stuff like that like really heavily relied on the touch screen and the stylus and stuff like that. Like you just can't do certain things like that, and some of those I think will fall by the wayside, unfortunately. But I also think that they're definitely jumping the gun by doing this too early. They're just all this is we're using money to keep this stuff up. We don't see enough reason to keep it up. It is not about keeping these games alive, letting people who are 2-3 generations behind or in countries where they're not able to access the most modern consoles and this is all they have, which is a lot more common than I think Nintendo will ever admit. And it makes me really sad because a lot of those people rely on that like 10-15 year old equipment, and that's what they get for Christmas.
And just think about the prices of all the remaining physical copies for this Nintendo machines now that this digital.
If they were bad already, like Xenoblade, the original Xenoblade for the Wii is already astronomical. The second it goes off the digital, it's just
picture this. Like, remember when I was talking about Metroid late last year? The Metroid Prime Trilogy, the Wii version. It's $20 in the Wii U. Try to find a physical copy of that sucker. It's like $300, if not 120 something. So expect every freaking game, if you're a collector that loves the physical side of things, to now skyrocket because of this. Because Nintendo's Nintendo and Nintendo's the worst. They make some of the best games and the worst business decisions. Number 4, Paul. Yeah. Were you a fan of The Witcher 3, Paul?
I was.
Well, its director Conrad Thomas Kiewicz, I think that's how it's spelled, has announced the formation of a new studio in Poland called Rebel Wolves, comprised of former developers from both The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. Envisioned as a place where game developers can reignite their passion, where they can focus on their craft and power their love into an amazing, ambitious title. No much else is known about Rebel Wolves other than the concept art they released that looks like a medieval setting with a vampire as a protagonist, as well as the game being an RPG in the mold of the former devs' previous work that will use Unreal Engine 5 as their technological backbone. I didn't put a lot of the press release in this thing, Paul, but reading that whole thing in PC Gamer, it absolutely feels like someone had sour grapes against CD Projekt Red and then decided we're leaving and we're doing it how we used to do it.
Yeah, I remember there was a there's a person that streamed on Twitch. I think her name was OnStar, and she would or Outstar or something like that. She was basically an old developer for CD Projekt Red, and she quit before the process of Cyberpunk 2077. So she was already talking about the frustrations of the creation of Witcher 3 and how the company is like grown exponentially, and the problems that kind of penetrated into that. Anyway, and it's just only gotten worse for a lot of those people. So the fact that somebody had to leave and create an entire game development company designed to reignite people's passion who are pissed off at CD Projekt Red means that they are doing a lot of not okay things over there.
I think this just further emphasizes that CDPR going public was probably the worst thing that could have happened to that studio. And also with The Witcher 3's incredible success and acclaim they got, gave them Bioware syndrome. Like there's like, if you read Jason Schreier's books, it was like Blood, Sweat, and Pixels and Press Start. They're available on Audible if you want to. Audible gives you one free book. You should definitely check those out. Amazing stories about game development, about some horror stories. CDPR got too big for their bridges with the success of Witcher 3 that then they took into a level of hubris going into Cyberpunk with the immense amount of marketing and all this hype, and we know how that game turned out. No surprise that the director of their most successful game saw it right on the wall and bounced. It feels like if what you really loved was The Witcher 3, the next game by them, like by the next game by the people that worked on that, is going to be from Rebel Wolves. So, because I don't even know if Witcher 4, because CDPR said that they want to go back to The Witcher. I don't know if Witcher 4 would be as good without these people.
I don't think so. I mean, it was lightning in a bottle from the passion of each person working on it, the source material being just vague enough to create more canon out of it, the fact that they got the rights to it for like pennies, and that's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah, and then they had to go into a lawsuit with the author because the thing got bigger than when he sold them the rights to.
Which it's like kind of both sides. It's like, yeah, you technically signed a contract on that side and you're acting like a dick about it, but at the same time, it's like, if it's so much more than what you planned for, you're supposed to be able to like renegotiate things as well.
Yeah, apparently Poland allows you to do that, so it's not like here in the US.
So I think he got like a good settlement out of it. So like, good for him, I guess. But also, gosh, it's not a situation I ever want to be in as somebody who wants to do writing and one day possibly have a game made out of my stuff. It's like, ooh, don't want to deal with that. That's not.
But that's what the sucky thing about licensing. You can always run into those kind of pitfalls. So the fact this is medieval, it looks like a medieval game with a vampire protagonist is interesting because we barely have the vampire games. So our friend Zach is going to be very excited because he has like a vampire fetish. He wants more vampire games. So, and by The Witcher 3 people, more excited for it because he likes The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
So back to Clown Town, number 5. Square Enix has claimed that Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy has, quote, undersold their initial expectations, adding another game to the list of their Western-developed games that always, no matter what, sell under whatever unrealistic expectations they had initially. However, they claimed their sales picked up in the months since launch, and that the post-review cycle word of mouth did wonders for the game when they started hitting the sales period. Still, this is another embarrassing financial situation for Square Enix, where they never seem to be satisfied with any sales made by their Western division, even when the sales numbers are those that other publishers, developers would crave to have. Square Enix games, Paul, sell millions of copies. Millions. And they undersold our initial expectations. I don't understand what in the F that happens with this company that what are they expecting to sell? Like, we're in our chat this week, ironically, we're talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake, what a financially shrewd move it was. Like, to put it in context, we're talking about how insane it is that so many games are coming out right now in February and March. Why are they not in February and May? And then I was like, yeah, I think it's because of the fiscal year, because some of these games need to be written off from the fiscal year while they move into the next year. And that Square Enix initially had a March 3rd, 2020 release date for Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then delayed by 5 weeks to release on April 10th. That meant that they were going to eat crap in their financials because that was a big game they had for the fiscal year, and they moved it to the next fiscal year. And they did wonders because that was the polish that made that game one of the best of that generation. And then on the same year, they put out Marvel's Avengers that lost them. It was, by the way, one of the 10 best-selling games of 2020. And it lost them hundreds of millions of dollars. How in the world you have one of the 10 best-selling games of the year and you lose $100 million that then all the profit what you earned from Final Fantasy VII Remake didn't matter because Avengers sunk you. How much money they put in that stupid game? How much were they expecting? How are they still a business? They're still operating. All the time there's like, especially if it's nothing from their Japanese studio, all the time you hear this undersold, this undersold, this undersold. Hitman undersold to them enough that they let go of the IP and the studio. They had IO Interactive, and now IO Interactive for Hitman 2 and 3 after Square Enix, their biggest successes, the studio said. That puts everything in perspective.
The fact that they're willing to get rid of that because it just wasn't doing what they wanted makes me think that their priorities are so outside of making good media that, gosh, it's like the same problem we're seeing with Netflix and Amazon, where all they want is the next Game of Thrones. They just want that thing that is going to destroy the entire media landscape in front of them, and nothing they make is going to be satisfying to them until they see that. So they're just going to have all of these things that are really good pieces of media, really good stories, really good series, really good worlds, and then they're just like, no.
And what's hilarious is that they forget that Game of Thrones didn't start like this. That was a small show that kept growing until it became what it was.
I remember when the first season was out, I was like, I didn't watch anything from it until like DVDs were coming out, and I was like, that looks like a cool picture. I wonder what's that.
I remember when Game of Thrones came out, and I remember seeing reviews for the first episode. I was like, oh, Sean Bean is here. He's doing another fantasy thing. Cool. Yeah. I didn't know a thing. And then I remember the internet exploded by the 9th episode. I was like, what the hell happened? I was like, wait, why they killed the main character? What? And then that's...
that was such a weird concept back then. We were so innocent.
Oh, yes. But that's what made that thing become big, because it was different for what was on cable TV or what was expected from fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
It's to me, this is the Avengers problem. Like what happened with the movies. Avengers didn't become just the success it was just because. That was a 4 to 5 year buildup of them doing the work to make it big. And now it's the biggest thing in the world. Other studios see we want that, and they immediately just want to get to the finish line. I feel that's something the Netflix and the Amazon are going to be struggling with. Them saying we want the next Game of Thrones. It's like, you want it, you have to start small. You're not going to get to what Game of Thrones was by its end, because you got to do the work. And a lot of these people don't want to do the work. But that was a side tangent ago. But just back to Square Enix, I just feel they're just financially inept. They totally are. It's like when the sales they have are disappointments, where for others are like huge successes, their books are in the wrong place. So I will always say F Square Enix, but also Square Enix in the Nintendo vein, they do a lot of good stuff that I just enjoy from them. But
it's the same Konami problem, the Nintendo problem. It's places that ended up with really great stories in their laps, and all they want is money.
Yeah.
And as long as companies only want money, they will go through the best stories in the world and the best people in the world.
And you know what's the worst part? Nothing. When they say that this underperforms, then it doesn't incite confidence in the people.
Yeah. No,
to be like, then why would I invest in this? You're not happy with what you've done. So I bet you that's the reason why Avengers never became bigger, because they were very open about how much money they lost in that game. So, and it was the freaking Avengers.
Yeah.
A year after it made billions of dollars and became the most successful movie in the world. So, something's
what I wonder is
there.
If the Avengers game had come out sooner, I think
it would have helped.
Done better.
Yeah, it would have. The plan was for it to come sooner. It was in development since 2015.
Now that makes more sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, then obviously COVID.
Better turnaround, man.
Yeah, they would have if they hadn't shoved the live service battery that they shoved into that thing. So, final story, Paul. What is going on with Platinum Games?
I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, so some recent comments they had made and recent statements make it seem like they could potentially be in trouble and in search for a buyout. Recently, famous Platinum director Hideki Kamiya, which, by the way, if you tweet at him anything in English, he's gonna instantly block you, even if you say you love him, gave some statements about how he wishes to work with Microsoft again to try to resurrect the canceled Scalebound, where he's made public statements towards Phil Spencer about being serious towards reviving that game. Then CEO Atsushi Inaba started discussing that he saw how Microsoft would handle the Activision deal, and that he believed they would respect the beleaguered studio's autonomy, and that they wouldn't be opposed to an acquisition if said autonomy would be respected for Platinum. Considering Platinum's recent output has been shaky as of late, with many games underperforming, despite some things being critically beloved. Look at Astral Chain over there on the Nintendo Switch. That was their last big game, but didn't sell crap. And Platinum pivoting more towards live service games first with their upcoming Babylon's Fall, which gets a demo on February 25th that carries over progression into the main game. By the way, the game still looks like trash. And their unannounced project GG. Such moves reek of financial desperation, and their constant mentions about Microsoft does paint a picture that they may want to be acquired. Considering Microsoft does not have a clear presence in Japan in any significant way other than Tango Gameworks, don't be surprised if something comes out of this as part of the ongoing consolidation wars.
Yeah,
they're desperate.
That sounds really weird because if the CEO is reaching out publicly to say, man, if we did get acquired, that'd be cool. It's that JK, unless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what's going on here, I think. But what I want to know is, why are they all of a sudden in hot water? Maybe it's just the failure of Astral Chain, because like it was a great concept, but I remember it was a little hollow in its gameplay, and a little obtuse because you're like literally controlling two characters.
But people love that game. That's the thing.
It's great. I mean, I love the idea of it, and I kind of wish I had the money to buy it, but you know, Nintendo being Nintendo never puts things on sale.
Yeah.
I don't, and I mean, shoot, if Astral Chain was put on like other consoles, if it did, I don't think it is. It was a Switch exclusive.
Yeah, it's just Switch exclusive right now.
Okay, yeah. If it was put on other things, it would have sold great. I think. I'm gonna say it now.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I still every once in a while I look longingly at Transformers Devastation, which I had purchased and can still download. I think.
Same. I purchased and downloaded.
I love Platinum Games for what they can do with the fluidity and power that games can create with their combat, and so yeah, it hurts my soul when.
Remember,
like,
Hideki Kamiya created Devil May Cry. He started that series.
Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah. Well, yeah, that'll do it. Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, as much as I love the series, I know so little about like how it was made outside of it was a Resident Evil spin-off at first. And
because Kamiya was at Capcom. Him and Shinji Mikami worked together. In fact, Kamiya directed Resident Evil 2, the original version of the Resident Evil 2 on PS1. Along with Shinji,
that was when they started spreading things out. Resident Evil 2 happened, and then they immediately were like, we want to make a spin-off and a crazy thing, and they made 3, and then they were like, we want something with even crazier supernatural stuff, and they're like, wait, make it another different series.
Yeah, because Shinji Mikami did the original Resident Evil, the Spencer Mansion one, and then Kamiya came in to direct the second one. I don't remember who directed the third one, but Shinji Mikami then did Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
He went through many versions of that game, including the one that eventually became Devil May Cry.
Yeah.
So, and then they split from Capcom. So,
and as it is, the rest was history. With this though, I mean, shoot, it's Platinum is really just all of this stuff is red flags left and right. I mean, everything from Babylon's Fall by itself is enough red flags.
Yeah,
I wonder if they see the writing on the wall. Where they're like, we know this is going to flop even before it comes out.
I think something I heard was that recently they earned their independence like 2 years ago around Astral Chain's time. This is something that I heard in one podcast, but I need to corroborate. I can kind of see that during that time when they were kind of like owned by someone, they're like, yeah, they're fine. We're doing contract work, blah, blah, blah. And then when they earned their independence, they're like, cool, we're on our own. We can do all our stuff. And then their coffers were looking good, and then 2 years later they are not looking good, so they are now in a point of desperation. To me, when anyone that is known for their traditional thing is pivoting to a live service, that always reeks, we are in trouble, we need money.
So you think the reason they even did the live service with Babylon's Fall is because they felt like they had to?
Yeah, exactly. And there's nothing from how that game originally looked in December 2019 when it was originally revealed. The gameplay was originally revealed because Babylon's Fall was revealed in E3 2018 just as a title. That I was like, Platinum Games is working on this, and I was like, interesting. a Platinum game by Square Enix. I mean, they worked together with for Nier Automata. That worked out well. They didn't do Nier Replicant though. That was done by a different studio, and Nier Replicant was just as well received without Platinum. So it's like, were they even needed? And what's funny is that Scalebound has always been said that was Hideki Kamiya's dream game. He always wanted to do that kind of game.
It looked like it had so much passion in it. So I respect his desire to revive that. And if they were able to put it on Microsoft like it originally was as an exclusive, I think it would kill. It would do so well. The whole idea of like Dragon Rider dude,
co-op.
But basically
Nero, it was a 4-player co-op, yeah.
4-player co-op, being able to fly. It's like there was a lot of good stuff going on with that game. I remember the cinematic trailer. I usually don't care about cinematic trailers. That was that one was cool one trailer, and I think it had gameplay in it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that was one of the few exclusives the Xbox One had that I was like, this could be really cool because this looks different from their usual mold. And then when that
very Metal Gear Rising Revengeance.
Yeah, and then when they got canned, like when they canned that game, that was the beginning of the end of the Xbox One as like as a console that could potentially leave a mark. That was when that was canceled, that was them throwing the title and be like, we're building now to the next console. Because you didn't get any notable exclusives from them after that. And I feel now Scalebound now under this Microsoft, now that they've got their crap together and Game Pass is a thing. The thing is that because if you put a game on Game Pass, you get a bag of money immediately.
You do.
So especially if you're a third party.
But you see, the thing is, I mean, they still haven't released a whole lot of exclusives from all their stuff. So
yeah, and that's exactly.
It's a better ecosystem, but we haven't seen the growth. We need the growth.
We need that growth also. That's the thing. It's like, it's all promises. It's all, the future is always looking exciting, but that's the problem of Microsoft acquiring a lot of beleaguered studios.
Yeah.
It's like,
you've got to fix everything.
Yeah, got to
fix
everything.
You can actually pull stuff
exactly.
out.
So it's always perpetual promise. I mean, they're in a good spot right now. The cadence is going, but even right now in 2022 is like, someone put a video. Microsoft put some dates out. What's coming in this year? We know Starfield is at the end of the year.
I know.
Who knows? They like gaslighting any questions by acquiring developers. Because the Bethesda acquisition happened when everyone was like, what the hell is Xbox now without Halo Infinite? That's why they acquired, because then the potential that was like, oh my God, now they have that. That can, it's swayed. And obviously Game Pass carries them. But I wouldn't mind, this would be an acquisition that I wouldn't mind if Microsoft absorbed these guys in a way, because to be fair to Microsoft, they have no presence in Japan whatsoever.
No,
Tango Gameworks,
it would be very uphill.
Yeah, Tango Gameworks is like a fart compared to like what an actual Japan presence actually means.
Well, do you think this could be a good foothold for them? Because I mean, Platinum Games is solid. But do you think they should get something different? That's
the thing. Like, would a Capcom, would a Namco Bandai, would a Konami, would a Sega would actually fall in there? I feel like
Microsoft bought Konami,
yes, imagine.
And they're like, the next day they're like, yeah, we would love to put all of these major series that Konami has on our systems.
Here's what's interesting about how it happens over in the Japanese community. And someone really pointed this out. It's like, I hadn't thought about that. Sega right now is called Sega Sammy. Sammy used to be its own thing. They merged. Namco was its own thing. Bandai was its own thing.
Yeah.
Namco Bandai.
Yeah.
So it seems like Japanese conglomerates don't like being fully absorbed. They like Square and Enix. Squaresoft, Enix.
Oh, you're Enix. Right.
So that's what happens over there. So
it's very okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. So it would have to be all right, this is Microsoft, within that is this company. I mean, you see it in the Activision Blizzard, but
exactly, it's based on how the Japanese mold of consolidation has happened over there. I can see maybe Platinum, especially because now they're seeming desperate because they can. Oh yeah, look, we think Microsoft, how they acquire Activision, they're gonna leave them be independent under them. If we were to be acquired, we will want that kind of independence. It's like you're just saying that as just basically kind of giving you the indirects, the kind of the double entendres.
he has that preference for Microsoft so much that he's willing to jump across the entire ocean
when they have
instead
Sony
of
there.
just look for Sony.
Yeah,
He's
like
like,
literally.
"Hey, Sony, you want it?"
No, literally think about that. It's
ignore
like,
him.
Who is the one
Microsoft.
that recently acquired someone and let them be fully independent? That was Sony with Bungie. They could have said that. It's like, oh yeah, Sony acquired Bungie and let them be independent.
Especially since this is just an intention, not hey, this is in works since several months ago. It's please buy us. Help me.
And actually, I think it's a Game Pass bag. It's kind of, they say that the bag you take and then you run away.
Yeah.
I think they just want to revive Scalum because they know it's going to be Game Pass fodder, and everything that's Game Pass fodder, no matter what, Microsoft always gives you a big bag of money for putting there to kind of offset any sales you don't make. So they probably see that. And maybe then there's like, they are buying everyone. So, hey, we're here. We're willing to go across the pond for you.
I mean, I respect the hustle for their part, for the fact they're having to do that. Because, I mean, you got to do what you got to do with that part.
But then also, if Platinum Games then is acquired, this is then another studio that Microsoft is going to acquire that it's in bad shape, that they have to kind of whip into good shape before it's in fighting chance again. It's like,
that's
they do like buying. They do like buying people that are like in their lows. They've been beaten, like that happened with Bethesda. Activision just happened to be in their low when they sneak in. In fact, there's an article in The Verge that actually now the SEC has put out the timeline of when all the talks happened.
Oh,
so
nice.
So for the Activision talks, so the Wall Street Journal put the expose for Bobby Kotick. Yep. Then 2 days later is when Phil Spencer puts that email that leaked to saying that he's deeply disturbed by what's happening at Activision Blizzard and it's going to reevaluate the things in the relationship. How soon before talks start happening with Bobby Kotick? The next day. He says that to his employees. And then the next day he's going to be like, I'm going to buy you. The scummy side of capitalism.
Yep. So there it is.
Yes. And you don't never have to take the moralistic standpoints of any of these people at face value. Ever. Yeah. So, because it's all gross things, all in the name of money or in the name of a service. So, we wish you well, Platinum. I wish your demo didn't come out on the same day as Elden Ring. You're just going to get straight up buried. Though it's good that you're willing to put out progression. Hi, Felix.
There he is.
It's right as we're concluding. We need the black cat. Felix the cat. But yeah, it's like, I'm really curious. But yeah, they're seeming desperate. Yep. So. And I wonder if Microsoft would even be allowed to do another acquisition right now. They're still they're undergoing the whole thing with the FTC.
If they tried to continue buying stuff, it'd be like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
that would be a power move to end all power moves for sure.
Oh, yes. So, Paul, and with that, we conclude not only this week's news, but this week's episode. A slightly longer one compared to the last few, but fun nonetheless. Where can people find you?
They can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter as usual. I've been putting up some more art, both for the game that I've been working on called Sea of Choices. Release date now is at April 9th. And I've been doing a couple of commissions for myself as well, which I don't think I ever... I did post that one. I didn't post any of my new art for the game. I want some of it to be a surprise for anybody that wants to play the game, but a lot of it's free advertising, so I like to just throw it up there anyway.
I'll just add, based on the art you do, he does commission work, so if you go to his Twitter at Dork of Art and you like his art, go into that man's DMs, get into a deal. He'll give you some cool, interesting art.
That is correct.
At least in his style. So
yes, in my style for sure. Alejandro, where can people find you?
They can find me on Twitter at @A_Drosegovia, where I love retweeting a bunch of stuff. They can find me at Alejandro Segovia 93, where I like posting our episodes and also links to the episodes in my stories. They can find my written content at thecriticalcorner.com. I kind of slowed down because we haven't had this many thought-provoking topics that made me do like a separate written thing, but I might be writing some stuff there. And whenever we Twitch at twitch.tv/theslayergiant. Paul, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully I see you online in Destiny. Enjoy Mardi Gras. And remember, people,
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
See you guys later.